Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about dynamic arrays. So up until now, all the arrays that we've been working with, we've given them a size in our code, like this. I'll show you. We've always done things like this. This is a two-dimensional array that we worked with, and we always set the size of the array when we declare it. And it stays fixed throughout the length of our code, throughout the life of our code. So here we had a 3 by 2 array that had 4 rows and 3 columns, and that size stayed fixed. Here, if we go down a little more, this is a one-dimensional array that can hold 3 things, and it always can hold 3 things. The size doesn't change. But now we're going to talk about arrays that we can change the size of. So let's write a new subroutine, and I'm going to call sub one dimensional 1D dynamic array. So when you can change the size of the array, it's called a dynamic array because the size expands or contracts. It dynamically resizes. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But let's look at what we're going to do. Let's say you're given some data in a worksheet that looks like this, with a city in a column and a state in a column. And you don't know what cities and states are going to be in your data. And what we want to do is put all the cities into an array, but only if they're in California. So notice some of these cities are in California, like Los Angeles, San Diego, San Jose, San Francisco, and there may be more cities added. So you might get data like this one day, but then the next day you might get data like this. Like there might be another city here, Sonoma, California. And you want to put all the cities that are in California into an array. So somehow you need to have this array change size. So if there's only 2 cities from California, you want it to hold 2 things in the array. If there's 20 cities from California, you want it to hold all 20 things. So let's see how we can do that. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to loop down this worksheet, down the rows, and we're going to check if the state is California. So we know how to do that. Let's write some code to do that. So I'm just going to do a couple things here first in the code. I'm going to declare an array dim city state. I'll just put dim city. So my array is going to be called city, and it can hold string variables because the city names are strings. Notice though, with a dynamic array, I didn't put a size in parentheses, so that's one thing to note. There is no size in parentheses. And when I say size, I mean upper bound. As we've talked about many times. So this is my array. It's called city. I'm not putting an upper bound in here. So I'll show you how we're going to set the size in a second. And then I want to declare a variable dim x row as long that will hold the row number for the worksheet as we loop down. And then I'm going to declare another variable dim I as long. And I'm going to set I equal to 0. And I is going to hold the index in our array, and x row, like I said, will hold the row number on the worksheet. So x row is going to equal 2 because if we go back to the worksheet, our data starts in row 2, so I want to start in row 2 and loop down this column and check the state, if the state is California. So what column are we in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The state is in column 8 and the city is in column 7. So if I go back here, what I want to do is set, well, I don't need to set a column variable, but I just want to know that the data starts in column 8. So now what I could do is I'm going to change the size of this array by using what's called this keyword redimension. Redim city, and here I'm going to resize this array so that it can hold one element. So redim means redimension. So I'm resizing this array. If I put 0 in here, that means the upper bound of this array is going to be 0, which means we know what that means. It's going to have an address of 0, and that the maximum index is going to be 0. So that means it can hold one thing. So if I run this right now, and we look at this in code, I want to show you what this redim does. If I run it, city has one, it can hold one element with it, and the maximum index is 0, and that's what redim did. If I stop it here and run it, notice city, it doesn't have anything in it. I mean, it doesn't have anything in it, and it doesn't show a size. That's because we didn't put a size in here. So going from up here, this line, to here, this line, in this line it has no size. It's just declaring an array that'll hold strings. But here, with this redimension, you can change the size. So after I step through this, now city has a size, and it can hold one thing. And you could redimension it to hold 100 things if you wanted. You could change it the size. I just want to show you, if you run this and you step through now, I just changed the size so that, look, it holds 100 things here. That's what redim does. It allows you to very easily, 101 things actually, because the index starts at 0. This holds 101 things, but that's what the redim keyword does. It allows you to change the size of the array. And we want to change it to hold one thing. Why do we want to change it to hold one thing? Because we want to keep our dynamic array as small as possible. And initially, we're going to allow it to hold one thing, and if there's a city that's in California, we're going to put it in there. So let's loop through the worksheet now. So we're going to do until cells x row comma 8 dot value is equal to CA, and then loop, and then x row is equal to x row plus 1. So this will loop down column 8, and it will loop over the rows because I have a row variable here, x row, and it'll start in row 2, column 8, and it'll loop down until, until it finds a blank cell. So what this code does here should be very intuitive. It's going to loop until, it's going to start here and loop until right here, until it finds a blank cell. That's all that code does. And now what we want to do is check if the state is California. So we'll put an if statement. If cells x row comma 8 dot value, if the state is California, then I want to do something. I want to put it into the array city. So I'm going to do city I. City I is equal to cells x row comma 8 dot value. So remember, I is our index variable. It's going to represent an index in the array, and we declared it here I is long, and we set it equal to 0. So we resize the array to have a maximum index of 0 initially, and initially we set the index to 0 so that here at index 0, the first time through the loop, if there's a city in California, it's going to go into index 0, which is going to exist. So if I just run this now, notice I is equal to 0, and the maximum the maximum or index in the city array is 0. So this would work if there is a city in California. There is an existing index that is 0. And since we set I equal to 0, we can put something in that index. But what happens the next time through the loop? Well, the next time through the loop, let me just do something here real quick. If I say there's a city, Sonoma, in California here, actually I want the column to be 7 here because I want the city. Put city in array if in CA, if it's in. So we're going to put the city in the array if it's in California. Now let's loop through this and see what happens the first time through the loop. And let me just hide these columns here real quick. Okay, so if I run this, I'm going to start in this cell here and loop down. And right now it's checking x row 2, so it's checking cells x row 2, 8, which is this cell here. And the value is CA, so it's CA right there. So it drops into the if statement, and now it's going to put Sonoma into the array. And if we look at it after that line is executed, Sonoma is now in the array at index 0, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so now our array is full, right? There's no extra space in our array. What are we going to do the next time through the loop when we get to Los Angeles, California? We need to have a space in our array so that I can put Los Angeles. And that's when I would use the redimension keyword to make the array bigger. So if I step out of this, I need to have a space the next time through the array. So what I want to do is increase the maximum index in my array. So to do that, I'll do I is equal to I plus 1. This is like increasing the upper bound of the city array. And after I do that, I can redim city to the new upper bound. And we'll see what happens here. So if I run this now, the first time through the loop, now I set, after I, oops, let me back it up. I want to get to where we were before. Before, we were at this place where I have Sonoma in the array, but I know I have another city in Los Angeles, and I need to somehow increase the size of the array. To do that, I set I equal to I plus 1, and I is going to represent, the index of our array, and also the upper bound of our array. So I can set I equal to I plus 1. So now I, after this line, is going to be equal to 1. Now I can resize the array. So if I step through here, watch what happens. City now has 2 elements. It can hold 2 things. Before we saw it could only hold 1. Now it can hold 2. But notice what happened. Where did Sonoma go? Sonoma disappeared. So I'll show you what you need to do here. Redim will resize your array, but it will clear out your array as well. And that's fine. Sometimes you might want to clear out your array. So if you want to clear out your array, if you want to clear out your array and resize it, just use redim and then the name of the array and then the new upper bound in parentheses. But if you want to hold on to the data in your array, you need this keyword preserve. So this keyword preserve here will preserve the data that's in your array, in your city array, when you resize it to this new upper bound, this new size that's in the I variable. So now if we run this, look what happens. City has one element in it, and it can hold, it holds one city. Now I increase the upper bound to I equal to 1. Now I do redim preserve city I, and look what happens. Sonoma is still in the array, and that's because of this preserve here. Like I said, this is important when you're dealing with arrays. You don't just want to use the redim keyword unless you want to clear out your array. If you want to hold on to the data when you resize it, do redim preserve. This entire statement, redim preserve. That keeps the data in your array. So now we have an array that can hold two things. So the next time through the loop, when I go to the next row, oops. So now when I keep stepping through and I go to the next row, now x row is equal to 3, and it's looking at row 3, column 8. And is that equal to California, CA? Yes, it is. So if I step through now, it's going to put Los Angeles into this array. So if I step through, there Los Angeles was put in the array. And it works perfectly because we dynamically are resizing our array each time that we put something in it. So we put something in our array, and then we make it one bigger to hold one more element. And we can keep doing this. So now I increase I again, I do redim preserve, and now the city array can hold 3 things. So this spot here at index number 2 is going to be, let's look down this column, it's going to hold San Diego. So if I run this, you can see that San Diego is in there. And then it'll go San Jose. Well, actually, after I put San Diego in, if we step through, now I made it one bigger here so that it can hold the next city, which is San Jose. And so if I just run this and take the breakpoints off, look what we get. Sonoma, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco. And those are all the cities in this data set that have a state of California. Sonoma, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Jose, and San Francisco. And notice when we get to the end of our subroutine that we have an extra space in here. That's because the last time through, when we got to San Francisco, after we put something in the array in this line, we still made it one bigger. So you want to be aware that when you're doing this, when you're dynamically resizing your array to put something in it and hold and open up another spot, at the end of your code, you're going to have an extra spot in your array. It's going to be blank. So you want to be aware of that. And what you can do to make the array, exactly hold what you put in it, the cities, and have no, you don't want to have this blank space in your array because it's blank and there's really no use for it. So what you can do now is you can resize the array like this, redim, preserve, city, I minus 1, and what this does is resize the city array to eliminate the unused last element. So we saw that there's an unused last element. What I can do is make the array smaller. So I'll go and I'll run this now, and you'll see there's 5 things in the array, 5 cities. But I have this unused last element, so I can make the array smaller by eliminating that element by doing I redim preserve city I minus 1. When you get out of this loop, let's see what I is equal to. I is equal to 5. So this is going to be 5 minus 1, which is equal to 4. So it's gonna resize the array with a maximum upper bound of 4, and it'll basically take this array that goes from 0 to 5, and now it's going to go from 0 to 4 after I execute this, because what's in parentheses here is going to be 4. It's going to be 5 minus 1 is 4. So if I execute this, and now I look at the city array, it goes from 0 to 4 like we thought it would. And there you go. So now you have an array that changes dynamically, and at the end of the subroutine, it is completely full of data. There's no empty spaces. And if I change some things here, if I say that there's a city in California named Brea, California, or there's another one called Yorba Linda, California. So now I'm getting new data. This is like you getting new data, and let's see if this array can hold this new data and only grab the cities from California, and the array can dynamically change. So before it held 5 cities. Now if we run it and I open it, it holds Sonoma, Los Angeles, Brea, San Diego, or Yorba Linda. So now it holds 7 cities. The indexes go from 0 to 6. So this works. You're able to loop through data and dynamically resize your array to hold exactly what you want with no wasted space in your array. You know, the last element is exactly what you want. It's the last city that's in California. And before we had 5 things in it, now we have 7 things in it. So you could do stuff like this. The most important part of this video and thinking about dynamic arrays is this redim keyword. And we saw what this redim keyword does. It just resizes the array to hold however many things you want. And remember, what you put in parentheses is the upper bound or the maximum index of your array. And the index starts at 0, remember, unless you put option base 1. And then when you redimension it using the redim keyword and you want to hold on to the data in your array, you have to use this preserve keyword. And if you don't, your array is going to be basically wiped out. So that's all I wanted to show in this video. What you can do now is, like we've done before, you know, for I equal to 0 to U bound city, you can loop through it, but I'm not going to go through another loop. You know, next I. This will loop through your array, and then you could do whatever you want with it, right? Like city I. You could do whatever you want with city I. So you can loop through your array here, and now you can do whatever you want. But we've done that many times already, so I'm just gonna leave that out. Whether we've already put it on the worksheet, we've already done stuff with it and put if statements in those 4 next loops. So this now you've seen pretty much all the different types of arrays. You've seen one-dimensional arrays and how to populate them through the VBA code, how to populate them through the worksheet, 2-dimensional arrays, how to populate them through the worksheet or the VBA code, and now a dynamic array, a one-dimensional dynamic array, and how to populate that from some data. And if you wanted to, you know, loop through it, it's the same thing. How do you loop through a dynamic array? The same way you loop through a regular array, and you would do that here. So you loop through an array, a dynamic array or static array, the same way you do. The same way for both. It's just the 4 next loop. What about 2-dimensional dynamic arrays? Well, you can do that. It's a bit more complicated, and it's very rarely used. It's hardly ever used. So I'm not gonna cover that. 1-dimensional dynamic arrays, sometimes they're used, but they're good to know because you might encounter a situation where you need it. A 2-dimensional dynamic array, if you need help with that, email me and I'll be more than happy to take a look. So that's it for this video. We're going to move on to some cool stuff. The class is progressing. We're almost sort of getting to the nearing the end. So pay attention and keep working hard.